Sana Johnson had learned long ago that invisibility was a survival skill. In the marble corridors of the Lim family mansion, she moved like a shadow, silent, efficient, unnoticed. But today, as she balanced the silver tray of champagne flutes, her hands trembled, not from the weight, but from the man standing 30 feet away in the grand foyer. Woo Jin Lim, her employer, her secret, her heartbreak. He stood with his arm draped around her. Yuna Choi, the woman who wore designer labels like armor and cruelty like perfume, the woman his family had chosen for him, the woman who represented everything Sana could never be: wealthy, connected, Korean, acceptable. Sana's mother had been the Lim family's nanny for 20 years before cancer stole her away 2 years ago. Mrs. Lim had promised, with tears streaming down her face at the funeral, that Sana would always have a place in their home. A job, security, gratitude for her mother's decades of devotion. What Mrs. Lim didn't know was that her son had kissed Sana in the garden 5 years ago, underneath the magnolia tree, and whispered promises neither of them could keep. Now, Yuna's laughter echoed through the foyer like breaking glass, and Sana forced herself to breathe. The Lim family's annual spring gathering had transformed the mansion into a showcase of power and wealth. Atlanta's elite moved through the rooms: politicians, business moguls, and the carefully disguised members of the Korean criminal underworld that Woo Jin commanded with ruthless precision. Sana navigated the crowd with practiced ease, refilling glasses and clearing plates. She'd perfected the art of being present but invisible, a skill her mother had taught her during those long summers when Sana had helped with the Lim children. "The help is so attentive here," Yuna's voice cut through the ambient conversation, sharp and intentional. "Though I suppose when your charity cases, you work harder to prove your worth." Sana's fingers tightened on the tray. She stood near the grand staircase, having just cleared glasses from a side table. Yuna held court in the center of the room, surrounded by her wealthy friends and several members of the Choi family, one of the most influential Korean families in Atlanta's underground network. Mrs. Lim, Woo Jin's mother, stood nearby, her expression flickering with discomfort. Mr. Lim, a distinguished man in his 60s who'd built his empire on both legitimate business and carefully concealed criminal enterprise, frowned slightly. Woo Jin stood beside Yuna, his face an unreadable mask. But Sana knew him, had known him since she was 13 and he was 18, home from college for the summer. She could read the tension in his shoulders, see the muscle ticking in his jaw. "Mother," Yuna continued, addressing Mrs. Lim with false sweetness, "when Woo Jin and I marry, we'll need to discuss the staff. I have standards, and I'm not sure everyone here meets them." Her gaze landed on Sana like a blade. "Take that one, for instance." Yuna gestured dismissively toward Sana with her champagne flute. "I've noticed she has a certain familiarity with the family. It's inappropriate, don't you think? The help should know their place." The room fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward Sana, who stood frozen, the tray suddenly impossibly heavy in her hands. Heat crawled up Sana's neck. She wanted to disappear, to sink through the marble floor. But her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Keep your head high, baby girl. Don't ever let them make you small." "I apologize if I've made anyone uncomfortable," Sana said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. "That was never my intention." "Apologize?" Yuna laughed, the sound cruel and crystalline. She stepped closer to Sana, her designer heels clicking against the marble. "You should be apologizing for thinking you belong here at all. Your mother was the nanny. You're just the leftover nobody knew what to do with." Mrs. Lim gasped. "Yuna, that's enough." "Is it?" Yuna turned to face the older woman, her expression hardening. "Mrs. Lim, you've been incredibly kind, but kindness can be confused with weakness. When I'm mistress of this house, things will be different. Professional. We'll hire staff who understand boundaries." She turned back to Sana, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure you'll find employment elsewhere, perhaps somewhere more appropriate for someone of your background." The words hung in the air, poisonous and deliberate. Sana felt her chest constrict, felt the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on her. She'd endured subtle racism before, the surprised looks when she spoke articulately, the assumptions about her education, the way some of the older guests clutched their purses tighter when she approached. But this was different. This was public humiliation, designed to break her. Yuna's father, Mr. Choi, watched the scene with calculating eyes. Several of his associates nodded approvingly. This wasn't just about Sana. This was Yuna establishing dominance, showing the gathered elite that she would rule this house with an iron fist. Sana's gaze flickered to Wu Jin. He stood completely still, his dark eyes locked on her face. The tiger tattoo on his neck seemed to pulse with barely contained violence. His hands hanging at his sides had curled into fists. "Yuna." His voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a knife. "Yes, darling." Yuna turned to him, her expression softening into what she probably thought was affection. "Apologize to Sana. Now." The room went even quieter, if that was possible. Yuna blinked, her smile faltering. "I'm sorry?" "You heard me." Wu Jin stepped away from her, his movements controlled but radiating danger. "Apologize to her." Yuna's laugh was uncertain now, her eyes darting to her father. "Wu Jin, I don't understand. She's just what?" He moved closer to Yuna, his voice dropping to that lethal softness that Sana had heard him use with rivals, with men who'd betrayed him. "Say it. Tell everyone what you think she is." "The help," Yuna said, but her confidence was cracking. "She's staff. I was simply establishing appropriate boundaries for when we're married. We're not getting married." The words detonated like a bomb. Mrs. Lim made a small sound of shock. Mr. Choi's expression darkened dangerously. Yuna stared at Wu Jin as if he'd slapped her. "What did you say?" Yuna's voice shook. Wu Jin turned away from her, his gaze finding Sana across the room. In his eyes she saw everything they'd never been able to say out loud. 5 years of stolen glances, accidental touches, conversations that lasted too long in empty hallways. "I said we're not getting married." Wu Jin crossed the room towards Sana, each step deliberate. "Because I'm in love with someone else. I've been in love with her for 5 years, and I'm done pretending otherwise." He stopped in front of Sana, so close she could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, something that made her knees weak. His hand came up, gentle despite the violence she knew it was capable of, and his fingers brushed her cheek. "I'm in love with Sana," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I have been since she was 23, and told me I was an arrogant asshole who needed to stop treating people like chess pieces." A shocked laugh escaped Sana, despite everything, the memory surfacing. She'd been so angry at him for firing one of the gardeners without cause, had cornered him in his study and unleashed her fury. "Wu Jin," she whispered, "what are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago." His thumb traced her jawline, and the tenderness in his touch made her eyes sting with tears. "Choosing you, publicly, completely." He turned to face the room, his arm sliding around Sana's waist, pulling her against his side. She could feel his heart pounding against her shoulder, could feel him trembling with adrenaline. "Sana Johnson is not the help," Wu Jin announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "She's the woman I love. She's brilliant, compassionate, and stronger than anyone in this room. Her mother gave 20 years of her life to this family, and Sana has given us 3 years of hers. She deserves respect, gratitude, and—" His gaze locked on Yuna, who stood pale and shaking with rage. "An apology from anyone who thinks she's less than extraordinary." The silence shattered. Mr. Choi stepped forward, his expression glacial. "Wu Jin, you will retract that statement, immediately." "No." Wu Jin's arm tightened around Sana's waist. "I won't. You're making a mistake." Mr. Choi's voice carried the weight of threat. "The arrangement between our families was never my arrangement," Wu Jin interrupted. "It was my father's ambition and your political maneuvering. I never agreed to it." Mr. Lim moved forward, his face flushed. "Son, think about what you're doing. The Choi family controls half the port operations in Savannah. Their connections to the city council, the police department. I know what they control, father." Wu Jin's tone held no warmth. "I also know that this family existed before the Chois, and will exist after them." Yuna finally found her voice, shrill and breaking. "You're throwing away everything for her for a—" "Careful." The single word from Wu Jin stopped Yuna mid-sentence. "Very careful what you say next." Sana's mind spun. This couldn't be happening. Wu Jin was destroying alliances, burning bridges that took years to build, for her, because of her. "I need air," she managed, trying to pull away from him. His grip loosened immediately, but his eyes searched her face with desperate intensity. "Sana, I need a moment. Please." She fled, through the crowd that parted for her like water, up the grand staircase, down the familiar corridor to the kitchen staff's break room, her sanctuary, her mother's sanctuary. Sana collapsed onto the worn sofa, her hands shaking violently. The door burst open moments later, Mrs. Lim entered, her face creased with concern. "Sana, sweetheart." The older woman sat beside her, taking her trembling hands. "Breathe. Mrs. Lim, he just destroyed everything." "He chose you," Mrs. Lim corrected gently. "There's a difference." Sana looked up at her, confusion and fear warring in her chest. "You're not angry." "Angry?" Mrs. Lim's laugh was soft and sad. "Oh, child, I've watched my son fall in love with you for years. I've seen the way he lights up when you enter a room, the way he finds excuses to be wherever you are. I've watched you both suffer in silence, thinking you were protecting each other." Tears spilled down Sana's cheeks. "Your husband wanted him to marry Yuna, the Choi family." "My husband wants many things." Mrs. Lim's voice turned steely. "But Wu Jin is right. We built this empire on our own terms. We don't bow to threats." The door opened again. Wu Jin stood in the threshold, his white shirt slightly rumpled, 4 buttons undone in a way that revealed the strong column of his throat and the edge of his tiger tattoo. His hair had fallen across his forehead, and his eyes, God, his eyes were raw with emotion. "Mrs. Lim," he said quietly, "may I have a moment with Sana?" His mother squeezed Sana's hand once, then stood. "Don't let her run, Wu Jin. She has a habit of sacrificing herself for others." When they were alone, Wu Jin crossed the small room and knelt in front of Sana, his hands resting on her knees. The position, this powerful, dangerous man on his knees before her, made her breath catch. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have done this differently. Should have warned you, talked to you first. You just declared war on one of the most powerful families in Atlanta." Sana's voice shook. "For me, Wu Jin, they'll come after you, after your business, your family. Let them try." His hands slid up to cup her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Sana, I've spent 5 years watching you from across rooms, 5 years pretending I didn't love you, 5 years dying every time another man looked at you, every time you smiled at someone else. We agreed. I know what we agreed, that it was impossible, that the world wouldn't accept us, that my family needed me to make a strategic marriage." His thumb brushed away her tears. "But tonight, watching Yuna humiliate you, seeing you stand there trying to be invisible when you're the most radiant person in any room, I couldn't do it anymore. Your father's alliance. My father will understand or he won't. But I'm not sacrificing you for business." Wu Jin's voice turned fierce. "Never again." Sana closed her eyes, overwhelmed. "This is insane." "Probably." She felt him smile against her palm as she touched his face. "But I've been slowly going insane without you anyway. This version at least ends with you in my arms. The Chois won't let this go." "No," he agreed. "They won't." She opened her eyes, studying him. The strong line of his jaw, the intensity in his dark eyes, the tiger tattoo that disappeared beneath his collar. He'd gotten it 5 years ago, after their first kiss. A tiger to protect what he loved. Her. He'd been protecting her all along, even when it meant staying away. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now." Wu Jin rose, pulling her up with him. "Now I take you downstairs and introduce you properly. Not as staff, not as a charity case, as the woman I intend to spend my life with. Wu Jin, I know you're scared. I am too." His forehead pressed against hers, his breath warm on her lips. "But I'm more scared of losing you, of waking up in 20 years and realizing I let the best thing in my life slip away because I was a coward." "You're not a coward," she said fiercely. "You're the bravest person I know." "Then be brave with me." His hands slid into her hair, carefully, reverently, knowing how intimate the gesture was for her. "Say you'll try. Say you'll let me fight for us." Sana thought of her mother, who'd always told her to know her worth, who'd raised her to never settle, never shrink, never apologize for taking up space in a world that wanted her to disappear. She thought of 5 years of stolen moments. 5 years of loving him in secret. 5 years of pain. Maybe it was time for something different. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, yes." Wu Jin's kiss was gentle at first. A question, a promise. Then she gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, and he groaned against her mouth. 5 years of restraint shattered. His hands tightened in her hair, his body pressing her back against the wall as he kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wu Jin rested his forehead against hers again. "Ji," he whispered. "I love you, Sana. I love you too." Downstairs, chaos waited. Angry families, broken alliances, threats and consequences. But in this moment, in this small room where her mother had once taken her breaks, Sana felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. They descended the stairs together, fingers intertwined. The party had dissolved into clusters of intense conversations. The Choi family stood near the entrance, a wall of expensive suits and cold expressions. Mr. Lim argued quietly with Mr. Choi, while Mrs. Lim spoke with several of the other Korean families in attendance. Yuna sat on a velvet chair, her mother beside her, both women radiating fury. When Woo Jin and Sana appeared, conversation stopped mid-sentence. "There he is, Mr. Choi announced, his voice carrying false joviality that didn't match the ice in his eyes. "Woo Jin, I believe you and I should speak privately, man to man." "Anything you have to say to me can be said in front of Sana," Woo Jin replied evenly. Mr. Choi's smile never wavered, but something dangerous flickered in his gaze. "Very well. Let me be direct. Your family's operations rely heavily on certain permissions, port access, distribution channels, political protection. Many of these channels run through my family's territory. Are you threatening me, Mr. Choi?" "Threatening? No." Mr. Choi spread his hands in a gesture of false innocence. "I'm simply reminding you of reality. Business relationships are delicate. They require trust, respect, and honor. When someone breaks their word, breaks an engagement that was agreed upon by both families, it raises questions about their reliability." Woo Jin's jaw tightened. Sana felt his fingers flex around hers, felt the barely leashed violence in his frame. "I never agreed to the engagement," Woo Jin said carefully. "My father and you discussed possibilities. Nothing was finalized." "Woo Jin," Mr. Lim started, but Woo Jin cut him off with a look. "Father, with respect, this is my decision." "Your decision affects the entire family," Mr. Lim countered, frustration evident. "Sana, you're a lovely girl. Your mother was invaluable to us. But you must understand the position this puts us in." Sana stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Mr. Lim, I never wanted to cause problems for this family. If my leaving would—" "No." Woo Jin pulled her back against his side. "That's not an option." "How touching," Yuna spoke for the first time, her voice dripping venom. She stood, smoothing her dress. "The maid and the prince. Very romantic. Very stupid." "Yuna," her mother warned. "No, mother. Let's speak plainly." Yuna's gaze fixed on Sana with pure hatred. "You think this will last? You think he'll actually choose you over his family's empire? Over his responsibilities? You're a fantasy, sweetheart. A phase. And when reality sets in, when his businesses start collapsing, when his allies turn away, when his family resents him, he'll realize what a mistake he made." "That's enough," Mrs. Lim interjected sharply. "Is it?" Yuna laughed bitterly. "Mrs. Lim, you've always been kind to me. Let me be kind to you now. This woman," she gestured dismissively at Sana, "will destroy your family, not because she means to, but because the world won't accept her here. Atlanta's elite won't accept her. The Korean community won't accept her, and eventually Woo Jin will resent her for it." Silence fell. The words struck deep, because they contained a grain of truth that Sana had feared for 5 years, that loving Woo Jin meant watching him lose everything. "You're wrong, Mrs. Lim said quietly. All eyes turned to her. "You're wrong because you assume my son's worth is defined by business alliances and social acceptance, that his value comes from marrying the right family and maintaining appearances." She crossed to stand beside Woo Jin and Sana, her chin raised. "I taught my children that honor means keeping your word, protecting the vulnerable, and standing by the people you love. Woo Jin has shown more honor tonight than in years of strategic negotiations and political games. Mrs. Lim," Mr. Choi began. "I'm not finished." Her voice, though soft, commanded attention. "The Choi family has been a valued ally, but allies don't issue ultimatums. They don't threaten, and they certainly don't abuse young women in our home simply to assert dominance." Mrs. Lim's gaze swept the room, landing on each family present. "My family came to America with nothing. We built our success through hard work, strategic thinking, and yes, sometimes through methods that exist in gray areas. But we've always maintained one principle: loyalty to those who've been loyal to us." She placed a hand on Sana's shoulder. "Sana's mother gave us 20 years of devoted service. She loved our children as her own. She asked for nothing but the opportunity to provide for her daughter. When she was dying, I promised her that Sana would always have a place in this family. I intend to keep that promise, not as an employer but as someone who will become family." Mr. Lim stared at his wife, surprise evident on his face. Then, slowly, something shifted in his expression. He looked at his son, really looked at him, and seemed to see past the strategic asset to the man beneath. "You're certain about this?" Mr. Lim asked Wu Jin. "Absolutely certain? More certain than I've been about anything," Wu Jin replied without hesitation. Mr. Lim nodded slowly. He turned to Mr. Choi. "Then it appears we have a problem. Because I won't sacrifice my son's happiness for business. We'll find another way forward." Mr. Choi's expression darkened. "You're making a grave error, Lim. Perhaps. But it's my error to make. This isn't over," Mr. Choi warned. He gestured to his family. "We're leaving. But understand, the Choi family does not forget disrespect, and we certainly don't forget broken agreements." As the Choi family swept toward the exit, Yuna paused beside Sana. Her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for Sana's ears. "Enjoy it while it lasts, because when this all falls apart, and it will, he'll hate you for it, and you'll hate yourself even more." Then she was gone, leaving behind a wake of tension and unspoken threats. The remaining guests departed quickly, leaving only the Lim family and a few trusted associates. In the sudden quiet, Sana felt the weight of what had just happened crash over her. Wu Jin had chosen her. His family had defended her. But at what cost? "Sana." Mr. Lim's voice was gruff. "A word, please." Wu Jin stiffened beside her, but his father waved him off. "Alone, son." They moved to Mr. Lim's study, a room Sana had cleaned countless times, but never entered as anything other than staff. Mr. Lim poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing her one. "I loved my wife's nanny like a sister," he said without preamble. "Your mother was family to us. When she died, a piece of this house died with her." Sana's throat tightened. "I should have paid more attention," Mr. Lim continued. "Should have noticed what was happening between you and Wu Jin. Should have addressed it years ago, before it reached this point." "Mr. Lim?" He held up a hand. "I won't lie to you, Sana. The Chois are dangerous. Their influence runs deep. Cutting ties with them will cost us, financially, politically, possibly in ways we haven't yet anticipated." Fear coiled in Sana's stomach. "Then maybe—" "But," Mr. Lim interrupted, his eyes meeting hers, "I've built one empire. If necessary, I'll build another. What I won't do is force my son into a loveless marriage and watch him become the kind of man who values power over people." He raised his glass. "Welcome to the family, Sana. Officially this time." 3 weeks later, the Choi family's retaliation began in earnest. 2 of Lim's shipping contracts mysteriously evaporated. City inspectors descended on their warehouse operations, finding violations that had never existed before. Business partners who'd been allies for years suddenly became unavailable for meetings. Wu Jin worked 18-hour days, shoring up defenses, calling in favors, negotiating new deals. Sana watched him slowly exhaust himself, guilt eating at her with every passing day. She'd moved into the mansion properly now, not as staff, but as Wu Jin's partner. Her old staff quarters had been transformed into a guest room. She now slept in Wu Jin's suite, in his massive bed, wrapped in his arms when he actually made it home to sleep. But the joy she'd expected felt tainted by the chaos surrounding them. One evening, Sana sat in the mansion's library, staring at the Atlanta skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Behind her, the door opened. "You're brooding again," Mrs. Lim said gently, settling into the chair beside her. "I'm destroying your family's business," Sana replied flatly. "The Chois are destroying our business. There's a difference. A difference that wouldn't exist if Wu Jin hadn't chosen love over strategy." Mrs. Lim smiled sadly. "Sana, I need to tell you something about my marriage." Sana turned to face her, surprised. "When I met Mr. Lim, I was nobody," Mrs. Lim began. "My family had come from Korea with nothing. I worked 3 jobs to support my younger siblings. Mr. Lim was already building his empire, legitimate and otherwise. When he told his family he wanted to marry me, they threatened to disown him. What did he do? He chose me anyway." Mrs. Lim's eyes misted with memory. "We struggled for years. His family did cut ties. We had to rebuild from nothing, prove ourselves all over again. But we did it together, and we were happy." She took Sana's hand. "Eventually, his family reconciled with us. They saw that our marriage made him stronger, not weaker. That I was an asset, not a liability. The same will happen with the Chois, or it won't. But either way, Wu Jin made the right choice." "How can you be sure?" "Because I see the way he looks at you." Mrs. Lim squeezed her hand. "The same way Mr. Lim looked at me 40 years ago, like you're his whole world." The library door slammed open. Wu Jin strode in, his face dark with fury, his phone clenched in his fist. Blood stained his white shirt. Not much, but enough to send Sana's heart into her throat. "Wu Jin!" She rushed to him, her hands frantically checking for injuries. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." His voice was tight, controlled in that dangerous way that meant he was barely holding it together. "But we need to talk." Mrs. Lim quietly excused herself. When they were alone, Wu Jin's composure cracked. He pulled Sana into his arms, burying his face in her neck, his body shaking with barely suppressed rage. "They went after one of our suppliers," he said against her skin. "A man who's worked with my family for 15 years. The Choi sent people to his home, threatened his daughter, a college student, Sana. They threatened a kid to get to me." Sana held him tighter, her heart breaking. "The blood. I had a conversation with the men who delivered the threat." His voice turned cold. "They won't be delivering any more messages." She pulled back to look at his face, at the tiger tattoo on his neck that seemed to pulse with his rage. "This is escalating. Yes. People are getting hurt. Yes." "Wu Jin, don't." He cupped her face with both hands, his eyes boring into hers. "Don't you dare suggest leaving. Don't you dare try to sacrifice yourself to end this. But if you left, I would burn this entire city to the ground finding you." His voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "If you walked away from me now, Sana, I would become the monster everyone thinks I am. You're not what's destroying me. You're the only thing keeping me human." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I can't watch you lose everything because of me." "Then watch me fight for everything because of you." He kissed her fiercely, desperately. "Watch me build something better, something that isn't dependent on the approval of men like the Chois." "How?" "I don't know yet." He rested his forehead against hers. "But I'll figure it out, I always do." A knock on the door interrupted them. One of Wu Jin's lieutenants, a man named Seung, entered, his expression grim. "Boss, we have a situation. The Chois have called a meeting. All the major Korean families in Atlanta, they're pushing for a vote to formally cut ties with us, maybe more." Wu Jin's jaw clenched. "When?" "Tomorrow night, at the Choi estate." "Then I'll be there." "Boss, it could be a trap. You walk into their territory." "I'm going," Wu Jin said flatly. "Set it up." After Seung left, Sana grabbed Wu Jin's arm. "You can't go there alone. If they're trying to isolate you, I won't be alone. I'll bring my people." "That's not what I mean." She took a breath. "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." "Wu Jin..." "Sana, these men are dangerous. If something goes wrong, I want to be there." She squared her shoulders. "They're doing this because of me, because of us. I won't hide while you face them alone. You'll be in danger." "I've been in danger since the moment you kissed me 5 years ago," she countered. "I'm done hiding. I'm done being the reason you have to fight alone. If we're doing this, if we're really choosing each other, then we face it together." Wu Jin stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. A real smile. The kind she rarely saw but treasured when she did. "Cherish 1514, he murmured. "Ne Kyoya, you're mine." "What does that mean?" "It means you're mine," he repeated in English. "My partner, my equal, my everything." He pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. "Tomorrow night, we walk into that meeting together. We show them that we're unbreakable, that they can take our business, our allies, our money, but they can't take us." Sana nodded against his chest, feeling his heart beat strong and steady beneath her cheek. Tomorrow they would face the storm together. The Choi estate sprawled across 5 acres in Buckhead, Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood. As Wu Jin's black SUV pulled through the gates, Sana's pulse hammered in her throat. Behind them, 2 more vehicles carried Wu Jin's most trusted men. "Last chance to stay in the car," Wu Jin said quietly, his hand finding hers. "Not a chance." His fingers tightened around hers. "Stay close to me, no matter what happens." The main house blazed with light. Inside, the grand ballroom had been arranged like a tribunal, rows of chairs facing a raised platform where Mr. Choi sat flanked by the heads of Atlanta's most powerful Korean families. At least 50 people filled the room, their conversations dying as Wu Jin entered, with Sana on his arm. The shock rippled through the crowd like electricity. Several older women whispered behind their hands. Men's expressions hardened. Yuna, seated near her father, went pale with fury. "Wu Jin!" Mr. Choi's voice boomed across the room. "How kind of you to join us, though I don't recall extending an invitation to your companion." "Where I go, Sana goes," Wu Jin replied evenly. "If that's a problem, we can leave now." Mr. Choi's smile was razor-sharp. "No, please, stay. In fact, your presence makes this easier. We've gathered tonight to discuss the future of Korean business interests in Atlanta, specifically how certain choices affect us all. He stood, addressing the room. The Lim family has been a valued part of our community for decades, but recent events have raised concerns. When personal desires override community welfare, when inappropriate relationships threaten our carefully maintained alliances, we must respond. Woo Jin's jaw clenched, but he remained silent. Therefore, Mr. Choi continued, I'm proposing a formal resolution. The families gathered here tonight will cease all business dealings with the Lim organization until such time as Woo Jin demonstrates his commitment to our community's values. And what values are those? Woo Jin's voice cut through the murmurs. The value of arranged marriages, of sacrificing happiness for profit, of turning our backs on those we claim to care about? The value of loyalty, Mr. Choi shot back, of honoring agreements, of maintaining the standards that have allowed our community to thrive in this country. Standards that include publicly humiliating a woman whose only crime was existing in the wrong skin? Woo Jin stepped forward, pulling Sana with him. Let's be honest about what this is really about. You're not angry that I broke an engagement that was never formally agreed upon. You're angry that I chose a black woman over your daughter. Gasps echoed through the room. Yuna stood abruptly, her face flushed. How dare you? Mr. Choi began. How dare I? Woo Jin's voice rose. How dare you? You invited me here to threaten my family's livelihood, to force me into line through economic warfare. And you're doing it because you can't accept that I love someone you don't approve of. He turned to address the entire room. I've known most of you my entire life. You came to my father's house for dinner. You celebrated holidays with us. You're supposed to be community, family. His hand tightened around Sana's. Sana's mother worked for my family for 20 years. She loved us, cared for us, never asked for anything in return. When she died, we promised to take care of her daughter, and we failed because we made Sana invisible. We let her serve us, clean up after us, exist in the margins of our lives without ever truly seeing her. Sana's eyes stung with tears. But I saw her, Woo Jin continued, his voice softening. I saw her strength when she worked 3 jobs to put herself through college. I saw her compassion when she stayed up all night caring for my mother during her surgery. I saw her courage when she stood up to me, and told me I was wrong. He turned to face her, his eyes glistening. I saw her beauty, her brilliance, her grace, and I fell in love with all of it, with all of her. Looking back at the crowd, his expression hardened. So yes, Mr. Choi, I broke your arrangement, and I'd do it again, because loving Sana is the best decision I've ever made, and I won't apologize for it. Silence blanketed the room. Then, unexpectedly, someone began to clap. Mrs. Lim stood in the back of the room, her applause steady and deliberate. Mr. Lim rose beside her, joining in. One by one, others stood. Not all, but enough. Younger couples, families who'd immigrated more recently, people who'd felt the sting of discrimination themselves. Enough, Mr. Choi snapped, but the tide had shifted. An older woman, Mrs. Han, whose family controlled several restaurants in Koreatown, stood and addressed the room. My daughter married a white man 15 years ago. Some of you stopped speaking to me, stopped doing business with my family, but they're happy and they've given me beautiful grandchildren. She looked at Mr. Choi. We came to America for opportunity, for freedom, and now you want to police who our children love? We're better than this. More voices joined hers, not everyone, but a growing chorus of dissent. Mr. Choi's face darkened dangerously. You're making a mistake, all of you. The Choi family will remember, is that a threat? Woo Jin stepped forward, his body language shifting into something lethal. Because I'm tired of your threats, Mr. Choi. Tired of you using fear to control people. Tired of you hurting innocent people to get to me. Woo Jin, Sana whispered, sensing the violence coiling in him. He glanced back at her, and his expression softened fractionally. Taking a breath, he turned back to Mr. Choi. I'm offering you a choice, Woo Jin said, his voice deadly calm. Accept that your daughter and I will never marry. Cease your attacks on my family's business, and we can find a way to coexist in this city. And if I refuse, then we go to war. Woo Jin's smile held no warmth. And I promise you, Mr. Choi, I've been preparing for this fight a lot longer than you realize. I have allies you don't know about, resources you haven't accounted for, and unlike you, I have nothing left to lose except her. He pulled Sana closer. Which means I'll fight dirtier, harder, and longer than you can imagine. The threat hung in the air. Mr. Choi's hands clenched into fists, his face purpling with rage. For a moment, Sana thought he might actually attack Wu Jin right there. Instead, Yuna placed a hand on her father's arm. "Daddy, let's go. He's not worth it." But her eyes, when they met Sana's, were filled with something other than hate. Resignation, perhaps, or recognition that she'd lost. Mr. Choi shook off his daughter's hand. "You'll regret this, Wu Jin. All of you will." He stormed out, his family following. About a third of the room left with them, but two-thirds remained. Mrs. Han approached, smiling at Sana. "Welcome, dear. I look forward to getting to know you." Others came forward, cautiously at first, then with growing warmth. Not everyone, but enough to matter. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Wu Jin pulled Sana into a quiet corner of the garden outside. "We didn't win," he said quietly. "Not completely. The Chois will keep coming at us. I know. This is going to be hard. People will judge us. Some doors will close. I know that too." He cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "But I meant every word in there. You're worth it. You're worth all of it." "So are you," she whispered. His kiss was tender, reverent, so different from the violence he'd barely contained moments ago. This was the man beneath the Mafia boss, the heart beneath the armor. "Iji," he breathed against her lips. "I love you, Sana Johnson. I love you too, Wu Jin Lim." 2 years later, the restaurant's grand opening drew crowds from across Atlanta. Magnolia and Kimchi, a fusion restaurant celebrating Southern soul food and Korean cuisine, had been Sana's dream for years. Now with Wu Jin's backing and Mrs. Lim's recipes, it was reality. Sana moved through the packed dining room in an elegant emerald dress, greeting guests. Her natural hair flowed in perfectly defined coils down her back. Confidence radiated from her, hard-won and precious. Wu Jin watched from the bar, pride evident in his expression. The past 2 years had been challenging. Some battles with the Choi continued, but they'd found their footing. New alliances, new strategies. A business empire rebuilt on different terms. Mr. Lim had gradually transitioned the family's operations toward legitimate enterprises. Wu Jin now ran a successful import-export business, consulting firm, and real estate company, all legal, all thriving. "She's beautiful," Mrs. Lim said, appearing beside her son. "Your father and I are proud of you, both of you." Wu Jin smiled. "I couldn't have done any of this without her." "We know." His mother squeezed his arm. "Oh, before I forget, Yuna got engaged. To a senator's son. Her father finally got his political connection." "Good for her," Wu Jin said, meaning it. Sana caught his eye across the room and smiled. That brilliant smile that still made his heart stutter. She'd been his salvation, his transformation, his redemption. He crossed to her side, sliding an arm around her waist. "Ready for your speech?" he murmured. "Almost." She turned in his arms, her hand resting over his heart. "Thank you. For fighting for us, for believing we could have this." "Always," he promised. "You're mine, Sana, forever." "Forever," she agreed. And in that moment, surrounded by friends, family, and the life they'd built together, they were exactly where they belonged.